I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Karen.
Wanda, here. Dan,
Here.
Don,
Here.
Sherry,
Here.
Joe.
Here. Quorum present. This time, does any commissioner have a financial or non-financial reason to abstain?
No.
I will be abstaining from the vote on number 10.
Okay. I have none.
I have none.
Okay. With that, I'd entertain the approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. This is the time for public comment. Would anybody in the audience care to make a public comment at this point in the meeting? Hearing and seeing none, public comment is closed. We'll move to item number 5, roofing repairs for government buildings. Mr. Pipely.
Well, thank you, Gary. I sent everybody the email attachments so that you could look at everything prior to the meeting here.
Did I gotta find it here?
There were 3.
Yes,
There we go. Yep.
and obviously these are repairs. Last week I took Dan up on the roof over at the safety center just to walk him around and show him some of the damage that's, occurred over the years.
Sure.
Or there's seams coming loose, patches coming loose, curbing, what they call along the edge coming loose. We have two different roofing, they're all rubber roofing, but some of the roofing is
Glued down.
adhered surface, and then the other is ballasted, and ballasted means with rocks on the top. And the ballasted actually shrinks over a period of time, and it's starting to pull the curbing loose from the edge of the building. So that's a good share of what needs to be done over there. And then patches again that are coming loose over a period of time, and they need to be fixed so that we can prevent leaks from going into the building.
Sure.
It's just good preventative maintenance, something that needs to be done.
Yes.
And it's a lot cheaper to fix it now as opposed to waiting till we get water damage. So I appreciate you showing me the areas up there.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if I add it up right, total for the 3 is 29,686.
Yes.
And there's a 30-day expiration on the quote, which I'm assuming the first quote is when we go off, and that was on April 19th.
Yeah.
So we're in the window. And we don't have to bid it because it's less than 100,000. So
Any other thoughts on the repair?
Really don't have much of a choice. And kudos to Jeff and this is an example of preventative maintenance, him getting out there and checking that out and being on top of it. So we really appreciate that, Jeff.
Did you get bids other from this gentleman?
From other locations, I did not.
I don't know that there's anybody in town that does flat roofs anymore, is it?
Not that I'm aware of.
We wait too much longer and summertime comes and everybody's.
Well,
gonna
and
be doing
that
roofing
was something they did allude to, the longer we wait, the further back we're gonna be, because they'll be starting to put on new roofs
Mhm.
rather than doing repairs.
I'll move approval of the repair.
Second.
Motion to approve bid for repair in the amount of 29,686. And a second, further discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff,
Thanks,
for
Jeff.
everything you do.
Okay, item 6. Come on up, Mike.
I guess we're coming up to the summer season, our summertime, part-time helper that mainly mowing the bike paths, flagging, patching potholes, just helping out wherever needed be. He's graduated college and is moving on to his career, so guess would like to have someone back again, because just taking the weight off of us to pull someone off to go mow the bike paths or the shops, it's just, that's huge. It's nice to have that extra person there. So I guess all I'm looking for is just permission to advertise for part-time help for the summer.
Mike, how does this fit in with the previous part-time help that you had during the summer? Is it a different guy?
We've had the same guy for,
He's trying to get a new guy.
right,
Yeah,
The
that's
the
what I
previous guy graduated.
college.
want. Okay,
We've had the same guy for the last 3 years, 4 years.
okay.
I'd move approval to allow advertisement for part-time summer position.
Second.
Motion in a second to advertise for part-time summer position. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have the striping agreement between the state and the county. This year, the list for striping, I have 63.5 miles with a total cost of 99,000, almost 100,000. The county would be on the hook for 82,000. This primarily covers all of our new chip seal for this year. Along with adding on Deer Boulevard, Riverside Acres. Paint's starting to, it's faded out pretty good. Last time that was striped was 2018, I believe. And that won't be on a chip seal rotation for 2 more years, so.
I would move approval of the agreement to provide for the striping and continuing maintenance of county roads within Yankton County.
Second.
Motion in a second to approve the South Dakota striping agreement. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Just a FYI, we originally had it lined up for the milling of East Side Drive to start last Friday. The company had an emergency they had to tend to. So their equipment's at Growmark right now, but the plan is to start tomorrow milling.
Done some culvert repairs.
Yep, and we have done some culvert repairs, replaced a culvert up on 448 north of 46, about a half mile. Been working on some culvert repairs on the Walshtown Road. The ones on the Walshtown Road have been taking a little longer just for the fact that there's other structures mixed in with the culverts that are rusted out, so. We have one more left to do on Walshtown, and then also next week, we'll probably start tearing out bridges. One on 448 south of the county line, about a mile and a half, and then also on 294th Street. So,
Replacements.
yep, them two would be your replacements. Well, there's actually 3 will be taken out. There's one on the Scott Road that we didn't get to last year. That one's getting replaced with a box, concrete box. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we do these early?
I don't think so.
I don't think
We
we
better
can.
wait.
They're not hearings, are they?
They were advertised in the
Yeah,
paper.
I think we better wait.
How about claims number 19?
That does not have to be it.
Those were
Liquor
advertised.
licenses.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha.
Okay. Okay, item 7, malt beverage license renewals.
Do we have to do them one at a time or all as a group?
We did them all.
I think in the past, we've always done them all as one.
Move approval of the malt beverage license renewals.
Second,
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Public defender contract. So we received notification a couple months ago that our public defender contract was with Fox and Youngberg, and they were wishing to step back. And they've kind of put together a modified contract that includes another firm that would encompass what they were doing. So we need to discuss what that would look like here.
I have a couple of concerns about that. Shall we discuss it now?
Let's discuss it. Yep.
First, on page 1, part A, it says it's a 3-year term, automatically renewable in part B for another 3-year term. The ethical considerations require that contracts for attorneys be 1 year. So if it's going to be approved, it should be a 1-year term and then potentially renewed. Secondly,
What page was that on the contract? Page
well, if
1?
you look at page
Part A.
1,
Oh, part A, there it is.
page 1, let me
Yep.
get to it now. Oh. I can't get to it. Okay, for example, page 1, article 1, subparagraph A. This term will be from June 1 to May 31. Okay, and then if you go down further, it says this contract will be from for a 3-year term, automatically renewable thereafter. My concern with the other 2 public defender contracts is criminals don't seem to commit crimes in ones. They commit them in 2s and 3s. So if Mr. Horn gets the felony case and there's a second felony case, that second felony case is court appointed to somebody not in Mr. Horn's firm.
Correct.
So we have a problem. Then it's my understanding that Dan and Lucy just want to do the misdemeanors. And again, they don't commit them in 1s, they commit them in 2s and 3s. So it would make more sense to either A, leave it the main public defender contract with Dan and Lucy and put Garrett in as the second automatic fallback. But I don't know if they want to do that. I'm guessing that they don't.
They are not staying together. They are 2 separate entities.
They can't be in the same office.
They're not going to-
Where are they going to be?
they're not. That's why the contract is not Fox and Youngberg. The contract is Dan Fox and Lucy Youngberg.
Where are they going to office? Because that makes a difference.
They are not going to office together.
Well, then I don't think that it should be decided on today until we know where they are going to office, because it can't be done. Because it's the same conflict problem that I had at the beginning when Lucy came in here and wanted the raise and wanted a $60,000 fee from the county with ARPA funds to hire another attorney. You can't have the third attorney in that office because of the conflict problem.
They are not going to maintain a common office.
Well, then that's fine, but we need to know where they're going to be.
Their physical location, I don't believe we have to for the contract. They are no longer going to be Fox and Youngberg.
Well, and that's fabulous. I don't care. But I'm just saying they can't be in the same facility. And this doesn't say that they're not. This just says Dan Fox over here and Lucy Youngberg over here.
To be
Right.
fair, though, it doesn't say that Horn isn't in the same building as them either, though,
True, but we know where Garrett Horn is.
right? And my understanding is that Dan and Lucy would be separate offices, separate physical addresses, separate firms altogether. Because
So, so we currently have one contract
One contract with
with
two
one law
attorneys.
firm in the same location. So what is being proposed is to have three contracts, three separate locations, Dan and Lucy, and then Garrett Horn. So we are allowing ourselves to minimize some of the conflicts with which we deal with one law firm in one location today.
If we do that. But on the other hand, if we're just going to assume that Dan and Lucy are going to split up, then why don't you put it out for bids so that Creighton Thurman or Tyler Matson can put in a bid?
And I think part of it is they went out and figured out a solution to our challenge, which was coming quickly. And because I think the end of May, we wouldn't have any contract for anything. And then we would be paying essentially the state rate for any of these public defender cases that come before us. So I do think it's wise that we move quickly on this. We are not required to bid this out.
I'm not saying you're required to bid it out. I just don't think there's enough information in here.
As what is missing though?
I'm sorry.
What's missing?
Well, how do we know that they're not going to be together? They own a building together.
Yes, and so are you looking just for a physical address to be added to the contract?
No, I'm saying that absent some more information, we don't actually know that they're not physically together
Well, and I think
because of the
to-
conflict
I
issue
think to
again.
Joe's point, they could all three law firms could
No.
cohabitate.
No, they
and-
can't
and
because of the
such, and-
conflict issue. They can't all
Exactly.
three be in the same one.
But I believe they have said they are no longer going to do business with each other. And I guess I don't see a challenge with believing them.
Do we know how Garrett came up with his $12,500?
I believe they looked at what our current contract is for $15,000. That
And
has
added
not-
60,000 onto it.
That has not been adjusted since 2016. So it's been that rate ever since then. And I went back and did the calculation. And had they been given a 2.6% raise every year, this year we would be at 17.5. And when you add the three contracts together, that's 17.5.
That's where you got the number.
That's where that number came from.
Okay.
So when you look at the county's budget, and I didn't have anywhere in my files what all of the CPI increases were from 2016, but I believe a 2.6% is lower than what our county budget went up on average.
I will give you the math credits because I did not do that math. But if you look at Garrett's contract, it says Article 1 terms. This agreement is to run from June 1, 22 to May 31, 2025.
Yes,
That's against the ethical considerations in the state of South Dakota.
ethical or
Ethical.
as far as, is there a statute that says a lawyer cannot have a contract over 1 year?
No, there's an ethical consideration that says that they can't. It's better to go through May 31 of 2023 and then just do it annually,
So the.
which makes more sense. I don't know why I didn't write the ethical considerations.
Okay, so the contracts from Coddington and Hughes that were presented last fall have contracts for 3 years or 5 years.
I'm
So
just-
are those counties not being ethical?
I don't know what they're doing because I didn't look at them, but I can tell you that the reason, because I was a child support referee for 28 years. And we did it, they did it because they said there was an ethical consideration, and I can find that for you. Year at a time.
So the contracts were
But it-
provided.
But I mean, I
So,
agree that we need somebody to handle the massive amount of indigent cases that we have.
And I think
I don't really care who it is.
the other concern is what this does is a 3-year contract gives those law firms, if they have to hire additional staff, whatever it is, that they've got this for 3 years. Now, in the contract, we can sever it at any time. The county has that ability to do that. The law firm has the ability to do that.
Mhm.
And so at any time, if things aren't working out, if we find Dan and Lucy aren't separated, whatever it is, we can end that contract and search for another firm to step in and do those cases. This framework was essentially built off of what Coddington or Hughes does. Which one was closer?
It was a combination of the two.
It was a combination of the two, and it seems to be working well, and I believe other counties do this. It's just those contracts were provided by you at last fall at that meeting. And so that's what I looked at.
Well, and that's fine. Those were just my concerns.
Okay.
And I think the depth of representation is a concern, and that was one reason that they had come forward and said, well, we'll separate to alleviate those concerns. So now it would be, say, Dan, then Lucy, and then Horn would even come in as a third, versus before we just had,
No,
one
no,
meeting. to
no, I
start.
understand that. It's
So that's,
just,
a good concern, and I think hopefully that's addressed.
yeah, and my concern was Dan and Lucy split them up.
Mhm.
However they came in the office, I don't know. And then the court appointed other people as needed. And it's going to be difficult for Garrett to handle this, so we'll see.
And if he's not doing a good job and the legal system identifies that, then we can certainly address that at a later time. So, but our deadline is coming up, and it's always best to have a plan in place before it's over.
So with that, if there's any more discussion or no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the public defender contracts with Dan Fox, Lucy Youngberg, and the Horn Law Firm as presented.
Motion to approve the 3 contracts as presented. Is there a second? I will second it. Further discussion.
Yeah, for further discussion, I think Wanda brought up some good points. Is it doesn't seem like it's a lot to ask to include in there that there's separation. I think that's reasonable. But
I think
I think what
when
she's
they
trying to do
presented
is-
this, though, they
yeah.
were clear that they are going to separate. And I
Yeah.
guess I don't have any reason to,
Yeah, I
to
didn't
believe
get
that
that
they're.
presentation. We just have what's in front of us, but it seemed like a pretty
well,
reasonable
you got-
looking out for the county request. I mean, maybe in the motion, we could just have that, as an agreement that it'll be separated. To me,
So
Wanda's got the
approval
most,
contingent upon
Yeah.
them.
she's got the
being in
most
separate
experience of this, and it sounds like she's trying to save us a headache and down the road. I
Or you
think it's-
think approval contingent upon them?
Or with it
Separating
acknowledged, with
offices or-
acknowledges that's how it's gonna be, I think, I think that's an easy fix, and to do it now before we have problems 6 months down the road.
So I'll restate my motion. I would move to approve the public defender contracts for Dan Fox, Lucy Youngberg, and the Horn Law Firm contingent that all three locations are physically separated.
Then I would second.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the three contracts with the understanding that all three offices will be physically located separately and not working under the same firm. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Item 9, Stockwell. Come forward, please. I think our projector's working. So Stockwell will be here. We had funded a sewer study for the lake area and north up to Napa Junction. And that's completed. And so we're looking for just an overview of what you found.
Yeah, with that, just wanted to thank the commission for allowing us to at least, provide some insight into updating the original study with this amendment, and then looking into the Highway 314 corridor and the Napa Junction rail site. Just as an introduction, I'm Eric Derrickson. I'm out of our Yankton office as a civil engineer. And then Ryan Truex is our environmental engineer and kind of did a lot of the legwork in terms of the report. So he'll be able to just kind of go through the meat and potatoes of the presentation. Kind of as I said, this agreement was to kind of update the original study done in 2008. Then this 2022 study update kind of updates some of the figures and the population numbers, and then reviews the feasibility of that original of these numbers. Then it also incorporated the study area for the Napa Junction area, Highway 314, and then also looked at kind of a hybrid option of bringing Napa Junction to the 314 basin, and then ultimately towards the city of Yankton. And Ryan will kind of go into more of that detail as well.
Okay, so just to go over the little background on the 2018 study, that was originally authored by Eisenbraun and Associates. And I'm sure most of you guys know current sewer service in most of Yankton County is on-site systems, primarily septic tanks. This study covered both the collection system and the treatment for sanitary sewer, and it encompasses about 6,400 acres of land. And of those collection alternatives, they include conventional gravity sewer, as well as pressurized sewer. And what I mean by pressurized sewer, that would be a grinder pump in individual homes or lots, pumping into a shared pressurized pipe. For treatment alternatives, that study looked at lagoons, a mechanical facility, such as what they have in City Yankton, or pumping to the City of Yankton for treatment. And in that study, the recommended alternative was pumping to the City of Yankton. This image right here is just a snapshot. Inside that red border is the study area. And one of the first steps was to update the populations and flows. So what I found is I went through and I looked at census data from 2010 to 2020 and compared aerial photography from around those same areas. And what we concluded was current population over the last 10 or 15 years has grown, about 300 people. So not terribly significantly, but a little bit. For the purposes of the study, I assumed a similar growth rate that was in the 2008 study. It's about 1 to 1.5% per year for the next 25 years. I also assumed in some areas of the study that we have denser development. So that brought up my ultimate population, which is when the sewer basin is completely built out and full of people, that the average daily flow moving to the basin would increase from the 2008 study as about 800,000 gallons per day compared to the new study about 1.2 million gallons per day.
Is that assuming that entire area is populated though?
Yes. And I want to say in the 2008 study, the lot size was about an acre per lot. And in certain areas, I kept that mostly in the bluffs area where it was a little harder to develop. But kind of in the southeast where it's a little flatter, I assume about a 0.6 lots per acre, or yeah, lots per acre. Loading for the treatment facility, I just assumed residential organic loading, which is pretty typical. This figure is what we used and how we broke up the study area into individual basins. That just makes it easier to evaluate. And I'll quickly run through the little sewer basins we developed. So on the far west in the yellow, we got the Lakeside residential. To the east of that, the green is dam site. And then to the east again in the purple, that's West 11th Street residential. To the south of that in the pink, that's the Highway 52 commercial. And then south of that in the blue, we got Deer Boulevard residential. To the east of that in another green is Timberland. And to the east of that is in the orange is Sister Grove residential. And then this is just a figure of all the pipes that went into the study. So one thing to notice, this will all flow to a trunk sewer that's proposed around Highway 52 that then flows from west to east. I don't think you can see my mouse there, but I do have it called out. There's a main lift station right under the little tag where it says Highway 52. That's where everything would ultimately flow to, and then that would get pumped up to 11th Street and then flow east, potentially to where City Yankton would collect the sewer. If you did your own treatment plant, that lift station would then pump to wherever that treatment plant would be located. So here are the estimate for building those lines for each individual basin. They're in a couple of options. There, you'll see there's alternatives. So for Deer Boulevard, they looked at doing either pressure sewer or conventional gravity sewer, and the cost for those two options were pretty similar. For Sisters Grove residential, there were two options. If you go back a slide, that's on that far east. There's a portion of that was proposed to connect directly to the city of Yankton rather than where that map shows it, where it gets pumped up and then goes west to the main lift station.
Is that River Aspen
River Aspen.
when you talk about Sisters Grove?
I believe
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
I believe so.
Right down here. So instead of it basically looping back around to the west,
Okay.
there's already a City of Yankton collection site basically here.
So if I were to sum up all phases of the project, the cost estimate, assuming the lowest cost alternatives, comes out to be about $55.5 million. 50.5, excuse me. And then for the wastewater treatment alternatives, we looked at lagoons, which would be a total retention lagoon that does not discharge. A significant drawback of this treatment option is the amount of land that's required. We would recommend kind of on the order of 300 to 400 acres for lagoons, which would make siting the facility significantly difficult and increase the cost. Mechanical facility option has a significant capital investment and ongoing maintenance costs that would need to be funded. And then the third option would be treatment by the city of Yankton. And I like to think of this more as a pay-as-you-go type approach. If, for instance, instead of doing this entire treatment system up front and you only did portions of it, it'd be easier to have Yankton take that wastewater to treat it rather than have a mechanic facility built for the entire system all at once. And as part of the study, we also met with the city of Yankton to ensure that this, or to ask the question if connecting to their system is still a feasible alternative like it was discussed in the 2008 study.
Say again, please. What was their comment?
We met with the city of Yankton to see if this would still be feasible, and then I'll discuss it here in this next slide. That's all.
Oh, okay, thank you.
We met in February 2022. We met with 3 of their city staff, Kyle Goodmanson, who's their Director of Environmental Services, Abram Haberman, who's their Public Works Director, and Dave Mingo, who's the Community Development Director. Overall, staff is generally supportive of the idea of doing a regionalized system. Unfortunately, there's still some unknowns on their collection system. They're undergoing a capacity study at the moment, and those really need to be determined before we can determine our connection points. So where I have it proposed right now is where some trunk sewer stub out, but we don't know if there's adequate capacity in our system to take it. So they are doing this capacity study. And as of February, it was 1 to 2 years before we can expect some results from that. And they're also undergoing some treatment facility upgrades. So there are going to be costs associated with them treating the wastewater. And we don't fully know those yet, as they're likely to increase as they move through their capital improvement projects. But overall, kind of what their insistence was that any improvements that they make to take on Yankton County will need to be cost neutral between the 2 parties. You know, they're not here to price gouge the county, but they're also not here to subsidize the county. So they're going to be very insistent on any improvements will be cost neutral. So moving forward, we'll also need to make sure that we get those further study on the collection system and continue to coordinate with the city of Yankton if you were to pursue that as a treatment option. So here are the capital cost estimates and the equivalent uniform annual cost for treatment alternatives.
Annual?
Annual. So the capital cost here for total retention lagoons is $50 million. Treatment by city of Yankton is that ongoing that I just talked about. And for mechanical facility, we're about $25.5 million. That column to the right is an equivalent uniform annual cost. And that's what we use to gauge the cost effectiveness of different options. So it's not just the capital costs we have to take into account. There's also operation and maintenance costs. That number isn't a number that you would use to budget for because it includes salvage value. So if your facility were to plan to operate longer than 20 years, there's a salvage value that we include in that dollar amount. So based on that, treatment by the city of Yankton appears to be the cheapest option at this time, not knowing any future projects that may need to happen. So this slide is just kind of a gauge to figure out what this might cost for the service area on a per lot basis for the collection system. So I got the cost there at $50.5 million in annual debt service, assuming a 30-year loan at 3% annual interest, along with operation and maintenance for the collection system, with our total cost of about $3.1 million a year. The estimated customers I came up with was 1,100, and backing into a cost per month per customer is about $233 per customer.
That's assuming they pay the full cost back. No, not
Dan,
minus
use
grants
your
or
mic.
Yeah, there's
anything like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's no
Okay.
grants, that's no grant money, that's,
Okay.
and it's assuming those loan terms.
And what was the charge from the city per month?
So that's still be to determined,
So that's not in there yet.
no.
So
that's-
did you
that's
get,
not.
can you guess?
The funding documents for a 5,000 gallon customer, I believe, for the city of Yankton, is going to go up probably to about $75. So I would expect that to roughly be added to that 233.
So we're talking $300 a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
That number by the city is somewhat undetermined because they haven't necessarily set how they plan on funding their current improvements that they're working on. So I mean, that number can vary. That's just the number that they've used kind of as their, visualization of what it will happen. But that number, would obviously be different than for a meat packing plant versus, your average household.
So this next section, we'll just go through the additional study areas. So in the actual study, there's Napa Junction and Highway 314. And what's not included in the study, but was requested in one of our review meetings, was routing the Napa Junction sewer through the Highway 314 basin. So I got a couple slides on that as well. So for those of you that don't know, Napa Junction is an industrial site on the northwest side of Yankton. It covers about 775 acres. And for the purposes of the study, we assumed about 1,500 gallons per acre per day. That can vary pretty dramatically depending on what type of industries would go into the sewer basin. If you have a warehousing facility, the flows would be very low. If you'd have a meat processing plant, that can be millions of gallons per day. And for the purposes of the study, we assumed that wastewater is going to the city of Yankton. So this next slide is
That flow that you have there, what, from warehouse to ethanol plant to packing house, where does that flow fall in?
so typically what I would normally see is about 500 to maybe 3,000 gallons per acre. So that's right in the middle, that I had assumed. So this figure is just an exhibit of the sewer basin. So up towards the top of the figure, there's that black box. That's the Napa Junction area. And that would all collect to a lift station on the south side of it and then get pumped down to Highway 50. And then Highway 50 would flow west to east to the city of Yankton. And then also included in that service area in the black box around the highway would be what could be served by the trunk sewer that is lying under Highway 50. And the cost estimate for that is right around $9 million. And then Highway 314, that's a basin that's sandwiched between the study area to the south that we originally looked at and Highway 50. So for this area, I assumed residential development, and it's an area of about 3,400 acres. The ultimate flow, assuming 1,200 gallons per acre per day, is about 4.1 million gallons per day, and that's assuming sending that wastewater to the city of Yankton. So that's just an overview again of the basins. In the orange, I broke it into sub basins like we had seen before, and then the purple are the trunk sewers that would move down through towards the city of Yankton. In this next slide, I have cost estimates for each of those sub basins, and the estimate for that is right around $15 million. Next one. And then if we were to route Napa Junction instead of through Highway 50 through our 314 basin, what I have shown there is instead of going to Highway 50, it would discharge into basin 8F and then flow down through 8E and then connect to the city of Yankton. So those are just shown there, are just the costs for those three basins. And part of that is upsizing of the pipe to handle the Napa Junction flows. So the cost estimate for that is right around $17 million to install that pipe.
Do you have the number of residents that would be served in that area?
So you got a calculator, we can,
I think you had a guesstimate, assuming
What are
development.
the numbers? I
Right.
gotta calculate.
looks like about 4,100 gallons per capita per day. So you take that 4.1 divided by 100, that 4,800,000, 4,080,000 divided by 100. That would be the population. So it'd be 40,800 if you were to fully develop at that density. That's about a quarter acre per lot.
And how far into the future would this have capacity to serve? 10%, 20%, 50% additional users?
So if we were to build it for the ultimate flow, that'd be the fully developed flow. So we could,
every acre.
yes,
So that's not realistic. That's not gonna happen.
not anytime soon. Oftentimes we'll put the collection system in place for the ultimate development, so you don't have to go
So
through.
every
it.
farmer in that area is gonna sell all his land and it's all gonna become residential. It's gonna happen,
It's gonna be what?
residential, 1 acre lots.
That's what this presupposes, correct?
That's the assumption, yeah.
And until that happens, are you considering the high number of residents as servicing the debt, or are you using the lower number that currently exists as servicing the debt?
So for this particular area, I didn't include any numbers for servicing the debt for putting that in. I think these were just cost figures for you guys to look at. When I go up and look at that other service
But
area.
what's important for us when we approach the
Right.
potential users is what it's gonna cost them.
Mhm.
And somehow that debt, that 14 million will have to be serviced until those thousands of houses are built,
Right,
or hundreds of houses,
and going in now, there's probably,
and infrastructure.
so I did not look at the number of customers in this area, but it's obviously probably only a few hundred, if that.
With the previous area, what was that debt service? 11, it was 1,100, is that?
Yeah, that was mostly based on a lot.
Potential lots?
No, the existing. current
Existing,
lots,
so
sorry.
that's what
Yep.
exists. So that should be fairly true cost to somebody living there today.
Today, if we were to put it in, yep.
That's also assuming that the entire system that you presented, the whole $50 million is built and not
portion of it.
smaller portions. I mean,
Correct.
there were, like, the commercial district was $5 million and, that can be built in sections. I mean, this is assuming it's all gonna be built at one
At
time.
once, yep.
Yeah, exactly.
The main reason why we look at this as the entire basin is because obviously at the bottom, where everything drains, you want to have the pipes sized accordingly. Now, that can obviously be done in phases. For the 314 basin, if it takes ultimately to drain though all those acres takes a 36-inch pipe, it might be 100 years before it gets to there. So you wouldn't necessarily build it all out. Right now, if there wasn't that demand, you would obviously phase it, accordingly, but what we would determine to be, somewhat of an immediate, interest.
So maybe the official phases, instead of 14 million, that cost would be 3 million or 4 million? Or am I missing it?
It
Yeah,
would certainly be less, but, exact number, it's hard to tell without, just picking out a particular area and saying, okay, we want to, take this avenue.
thank you.
I guess, yeah, if there's any other further questions, feel free to.
Yeah, I know you presented it as getting all built at one time, but the reality is it would probably be a small development that would be just like in phases, like you're saying. When you present it, it's gonna be $50 million for the whole thing or 14 for this, that's not realistic. That's not gonna be something that likely happens.
Correct, yeah.
But I know you gotta size the pipes for that. You can't build the close portion and then build out here and then rip up what you're doing. So,
Yeah, and
it makes sense, but.
one other thing is, obviously we talked about the cost neutral aspect with the city. The city's only got a certain amount of capacity as well, that if they would have, looked at the whole basin, they would have been looking at all these and they would have been, way oversized, for, decades. So, ultimately, yeah, if this did fully develop out, the city of Yankton have to make, huge capital improvements as well, but to do, kind of somewhat of an immediate, expansion, probably wouldn't necessarily call for, upgrades to happen within the first couple years, but as things develop, there'd be capital improvements that would have to, certainly be addressed.
So this is, go ahead.
And just to add on to that, if you want to look at doing smaller phases, I think what would make sense is to wait for City of Yankton to get their collection system study completed and figure out what capacity is available, and then looking at potentially phasing the project out or downsizing to smaller pieces.
So this is somewhat for you gentlemen and mostly for the commission. I think when this was originally discussed and looked at, the intent was to take this information to the lake area people, have some sort of numbers and look for a sanitary district to be developed. Is there a game plan going forward to do so? And do you plan on going out to there or assisting kind of in the next phases of district development and so on and so forth?
I guess beyond the study, we weren't necessarily going to, start, championing it or anything. But this is certainly a tool that the county can use, and however they decide to, go on with, some future partnership to do that, that's a tool for them to use and present to residents.
Yep. So I guess I'd ask the same question, the commission, what's the plan with, we've spent the money, we've got the information, what's the next phase?
I want to ask one more question, kind of a clarification. Several people have made considerable investments in camping facilities out by the lake. How would they be handled? We'd have maybe 70 campers on 10 acres or 12 acres or something like that. 10 per acre.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's those are many of the loose end kind of questions, whether on how the county would like to kind of fund the project or delegate their rate charges. You could certainly, if you wanted to keep your permanent resident, cost, to be, less, you would try and, basically these high demand, seasonal kind of areas, could be, assessed accordingly or charged
I
accordingly.
would think that once a sewer district is determined, then that would be decided by that district, I would think.
And I think we need to be clear here, several times it's been mentioned that the county is taking charge of this.
Yeah,
And
sorry. It's probably
yeah,
a sewer
so we have to
district.
be careful
Yeah.
because counties can't do that. This
Correct.
has to be sanitary districts. So again,
Yeah.
those folks out there need to decide if this is their best path forward.
Yep.
And when you phase things, the people who get the services first, when you're phasing, are the ones who are paying for that. When you add, those folks come into it. But Joe's point is correct. What's the next step? Do we plan to try to have public meetings out there to get interest, gauge interest?
Well, from people that I've talked to, and it hasn't been a lot, but they're not going to be in favor of paying $233 a month,
300.
$300 a month extra going forward.
Yep.
And, I suppose that they'd have to consider that if the feds or the state came down and said, you have to have an alternative. But at this point in time, I can't imagine that many of the residents would vote in favor of 300, 200. I don't even think they'd vote in favor of $100 a month.
Yeah. And to the point, this is all burden on the resident if there was a grant for half of it, you would be down $115 from there. So you're still around
And that's-
$200.
And that's without paying for the processing that the city of Yankton's. gonna
Oh, that
charge.
would include it. 200 would include it. Because what I did was I took the 233 and cut it in half. So you're at 115. So you're
Add on
just
the
below. the-
75 still gonna be.
So you're
true,
180, so 180, 190.
One
So
of
it's
the,
still-
you know, when we were at some of these meetings, some of the emphasis on 314 and why we had them reevaluate is if it would be decided that there would be a development along 314, it makes a lot more sense to hook in on a new development rather than going in with existing septic tanks that are functioning and replacing it. And my hope is that this information is now available if that comes along. And particularly the Highway 52 commercial district, I know at $5 million is significant, but if we would get a big developer coming in, car wash, large motel or something like that, it's not out of reasonable possibilities that it could be made work. The reality is not going to all happen at once. It's going to be phased. And the way this is broken down, it gives people options.
And the challenge there is if you don't require people who are there to hook into the system, the only person paying for it is the first residence bill. And they're paying for the $5 million to do the trunk line. That's the challenge with it. So.
Well, I think, we can talk about this, I think, all night if we wanted. I think we're gonna move on. But yeah, I think to the point is we spent the money for a study and I would like to see it go somewhere. I don't want to see in 2040, we pay to update another study, knowing that the costs are going to be insane. And people living there currently aren't likely to join into it. So if someone wants to take the ball and run with this, I would encourage them. That was kind of what was alluded to when we
Gary,
approved
could
this
we
plan.
post this on the county website and just let people look it over and really it's like Sherry said, it's going to be up to the citizens in that area if they want to move forward, but at least now they have some information to go off.
Well, I think we have to actively.
Let's see it. And the challenge
Get
with
it to
that
them.
is if you do it in phases, how do you get that vote taken care of?
No, and
Yeah.
it's, you've got to expand the district every time, and it's a big conversation, and to Joe's point, when this was approved, the intent was to take it out and to have that conversation for those who voted to update the study. So if there's interest in one of the commissioners setting that up, I think it should be done.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks,
for
guys.
coming.
And we're. Okay, we'll move to item 10. Sorry, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into Board of Adjustment.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We are now on Board of Adjustment. Item 10, Posh variance. And just to note, this variance, I believe, was there was an error in the legal description. It says range 56 and it's range 55 or vice versa. I need to verify that. But it's
It's 55. I think.
okay.
Yeah, 55, not 56.
Okay, the packet says 56. It is 55 though. So
Was that
just to be clear,
that way in the planning commission too?
I don't know for sure.
Will that have
I'd
to go
look
back
at
through the planning commission as well then? Because I assume we're going to take no action on it.
State's attorney said we can move forward on it if it's stated up
Right.
front.
Okay,
here.
got it. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, so applicants requesting a variance to minimum lot size for accretion property in rural transitional district per Article 18, Section 1807 and Article 19, Section 1907. Said property is legally described as plat of lot B1, being accretion property lying south of lot B in section 16T 93 north, range 55 W of the 5th or prime meridian, Yankton County, South Dakota.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Tom Posh. Last month, Bill had a nice slide of a map up there. I don't know how to bring it up if we do have a, otherwise I
On
have a map
Beacon?
that I can
I
show.
think
to
we
him.
can get Beacon up. Can you get Beacon up, Gary? At the very top,
Just keep going, it'll come to a map.
way up, there you go. Give you a parcel.
It's
Parcel.
05
Here it is.
016 100 245. There you go.
Is this currently zoned rural transitional? Is that correct? Rural transitional? Okay.
Do we have a laser pointer? It's easier to
I
explain.
don't know if there's one up there. or not. There used to be one. I couldn't tell you if it's there or not.
It's bright, so be careful. Don't blind Wanda with it.
This is the southeast corner of Yankton, right here. This is Nebraska. This is South Dakota. This is either Rush Island or Elk Island. This is south of the Dakota archery area. My wife and I own part of what's within the green boundary. This boundary, this green boundary actually includes what we already have a title to and what we're seeking title to. What we're seeking title to is the north half of this dry riverbed, which is just a sliver. It just runs along the south edge of our property. Our property is about 10.5 acres. I think the half of the dry riverbed we're after is somewhere in the 4 or 5 or something. The south half of the riverbed has been claimed by the owner of this land and is considered part of Nebraska. What we're seeking to do is add, this is accretion ground, this dry riverbed. Used to be flowing water through here many years ago. Now it fills with water if it's a heavy snow melt or heavy rain during the late summer. We're seeking a variance to the minimum lot size because we don't want to add it directly to our mainland property because it's so low. The riverbed is approximately 10 feet below the high bank. And so we don't want to add it directly because then we're paying flood insurance, which there's no purpose because you can't build down there anyway because it fills with water. So what we're seeking to do is simply finalize the boundary between South Dakota and Nebraska and simply call it a separate lot, but make it part of our property. We need the variance because this is so small. This thin riverbed is so small.
How many acres is that little chunk there?
What we already own is about 10.5 acres.
Okay.
What we have title to, the riverbed, I don't remember, it's somewhere at 4.5 acres or something like that.
Mhm.
I'm not sure.
Lot B1 is 5.83, there's 10.27 acres on top.
And we're variancing it because it's rural transition.
It's so small.
Doesn't meet the 20 acre
Yeah,
requirement.
Yeah.
It's such a small strip.
I'm wondering why didn't we rezone it to another zone?
And here's, I believe this is the boundary,
Mhm.
county Yankton, this boundary right here, so it runs right through it.
City Dan.
Oh,
Issue.
okay, got it.
I have to click that
So
ETJ,
part
the
of-
one that
oh.
right below that city is
Part of it
ETJ.
is ETJ or is it actually in the city? Gary, is it?
So the west half is ETJ, the east half would be RT.
The border being right there.
Any questions for the applicant?
So, and the plat's gonna be later. So right now, that entire blue shape is platted
We don't,
and,
no, it's, I mean, this is as far as it's gone. It's not.
Well,
we
but
haven't
you're-
subdivided further.
yeah.
No, it's not.
So what is platted now? What's your current plat? Is
Right
it
now-
just the,
Right now, what we have a title to starts about here
okay,
and then runs over here like this.
yeah, and there's just a sliver
and
all the
then
way
runs
down.
Down here to there.
Okay, and then the plat coming later is to
Is
plat this
this.
accretion
Yeah,
property.
this,
Okay.
this little sliver, it starts about here, then goes over here and it just kind of runs right along that. You can kind of see where the tree line is.
Yep,
That's the high bank.
gotcha.
And that's the little sliver of dry river bed there. And then this south sliver or south half of the river bed, dry river bed, has been claimed by this guy.
Nebraska. Okay, thank you.
So there's an official state line that runs through there that's documented. So they,
This, right now, this is, our property is the south border of South Dakota.
so
We're
what,
trying to extend it to halfway, to include half, the north half of the dry river bed.
in his plat does not go up to your border?
His plat stops. He actually had a surveyor from Nebraska do it several years ago, which I didn't even know about. I found out last year. He went and claimed the south, what he determined to be the south half of the dry river bed, which ends up being pretty close. Actually, out here, it's not even, he claimed way more over there, but then they tried to maintain some straight lines. They probably should have put a corner here and run this a lot farther because he's claimed that whole thing there, which is quite large. But anyway, he's already claimed that as part of Nebraska. So,
So you want to
So
get
he-
this claim, so you don't
South
have to
Dakota.
go have a duel at
well,
noon and.
I'll get into that. So here, this was the south border of Nebraska, right? Well, I mean, the north border of Nebraska ran kind of like this. This is different color. It's just, it's a field, but that's not the color of the one. It's just like color coded. So the riverbed is actually kind of, you can see it, part of it over there. This dispute has actually been going on since about the 1950s. Trying to determine where the actual state border was. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. Darlene could tell you more about that. Her late husband was involved with that. The Supreme Court kicked it back to the states and they said to the states, figure it out yourselves. One state has a border committee, the other one doesn't. And we've owned the land now for about 15, 16 years, waiting for the committee to show up. It never has, it never will. So again, about 10 years back, 10, 12 years back, it went farther east here. In this area, the same issue went to court and the judge, learning the history, threw it out the morning of the court case and said, go figure it out yourselves. So
here we are.
Because that's
so
my only concern.
I
Are we
could-
gonna be in
Sure.
court fighting over who, is this Nebraska or
Well,
South Dakota?
that's a fight that could go on forever and it probably won't be decided unless the involved parties agree to end it, which I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Right now, I've been told that I could go challenge his property line and go fight, and well, it'll just be expensive and nothing will be agreed upon.
So Deb, from a county standpoint, if either party were to challenge that property line, does that turn into a civil matter, or are they gonna drag the county into it and say you approve this? Okay. No further questions.
If you want the statute, I'll give you the statute. You can go read.
I actually have some of the Supreme Court document where they kicked it back to the states and tell them to figure it out.
No, I'm
So
good.
It's not gonna be decided by the border committee. It just has to be decided by the landowners. Okay, move on.
Any further questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay. You may have a seat, sir. We will open this up to public comment. Anybody in the audience care to make public comment on this variance application? Hearing and seeing none, public comment is closed. Bring it back to the board for decision.
Did you want to walk through
What- I
findings?
was
of
gonna
fact
say,
or
while
anything?
we wait, findings from the planning and zoning, hardships not generally shared, will not be detriment to adjacent properties. Reasons are demonstrable. No convenience, profit or caprice, not of general or recurring nature. Applicants requesting a variance to minimum lot size for accretion property in a rural transitional district. The applicant has no control over the size of the property due to it being accretion. Conditions are not the result of the applicant. No special privilege is granted. Mailings were out, public hearing was held. This accretion property would be in the floodplain, and so the request is to keep it separate from the current titled land. And this was approved by the planning and zoning 7-0.
Only question is why did they go a variance route, especially with rural transitional, and not rezone it to something where you wouldn't have to get a variance?
Well, you'd
And
have
that's
to
what was-
rezone everything there.
Yeah, but
What would you put it as?
something that makes the RT is 20 acres, so
Right?
R1 would be 5, R2 would be less, and you wouldn't have to go through a variance. I guess when, you're leaving it
You'd have to
as RT, and that's a minimum of 20-acre lot, and that's gonna be much, much smaller than that. Granted, you can't build on it, but
I
maybe,
would say the apple-
maybe even moving it to ag would be appropriate for that, because you're never gonna build anything on it, as opposed to
We'd
leaving
still
it
be
at
in for
RT.
variance if it was. ag.
Yeah, you would, but RT is kind of just a pretty confusing zone to leave it as. I was just wondering what the reasoning was, if there was one.
I would move approval of the variance based on findings of fact from the planning commission.
Second.
Motion in a second to approve the variance based on findings of fact. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Oh,
Aye.
sorry. Roll call vote, please, Karen. That's right.
Dan,
Yes,
Don,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Joe.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, item 11, Jensen variance.
hello.
Quickly read, plat of tracks 1A, 2A, 3A, 6A, and 8A of DJ's addition being accretion property line south of lots A and B, and track 7 and 8 of DJ's addition in lot B in section 16, township 93 north, range 55 west of the 5th prime meridian, Yankton County, South Dakota. Okay,
Okay, I'm right next to Tom. I'm to the east of Tom.
okay,
And he said about everything there is to say, we've been, discussing the Okay. So I don't know.
Looking to do the same thing, same
Yes,
reasons.
Could have just clicked on the property, go to mapping. She's the property right next to that one.
Yeah, I know, it's all right, I got a number here.
While Sherry's
you're-
pulling that up, are there any questions for the applicant?
No, Darlene, now she's zoned rural R2 already. I guess, and that's what I was saying, is that it makes more sense because that's what the neighboring property was zoned, but she's already zoned that, so it doesn't matter.
Just the applicant would have to request a rezone. We're not gonna. force
Your
it.
land is just below the green line.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It doesn't look like my map. So, okay, yeah, that's it. So my house is that white?
Mhm.
Do you see it? Yeah, right in there. I'm thinking that must be my barn, and my house is over to the west of it. So Harley and Chris, they own the land right east of my white barn there. That's their land. And to the east of that, that's Larrington's, and then to the east of that is Brad King. But the land up in that area hasn't been sold. I have given this one little corner up here is my son-in-law and daughter's land. I gave them each an acre of land when they.
Mhm.
So other than that, I've got a little bit of land that I can sell yet and that I'd like to do. And the other is, we wanted a boundary is what we wanted. And so,
We gotta,
Hang on a second.
whoop. Is there any more questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Seeing none, you may sit down, ma'am.
thank you.
Yep. Is there any comments from anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this? Hearing and seeing none, public comment is closed. We'll bring it back to the board for decision.
So this is essentially making little lots out of the, I'll call it the leg or whatever that goes to the right on the bottom. Okay.
Yeah,
Gary,
looking at
it's
that.
Same thing, accretion
too.
ground, right?
Yes.
It's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Same
I think
thing,
it's
accretion
the
ground
same thing that
can't be
Natasha
developed,
said.
So
Those are
Already
already.
in.
They're already, and they want to add to the south of that is my understanding.
And see, this one makes sense because it's rezoned to R2.
I think they're gonna go. This is the accretion. These are already.
Gotcha.
That's how I understood it. Yeah, there's different tracks in each
Well, that's
part.
what I mean. They're making little,
Yeah,
it's not all one.
right. Yep. That's how I'm reading that.
Accretion land down there. We'll go with everything, okay. We Joe has this little piece here. Oh, yeah, that is their land somewhere.
Right.
Those property lines will just extend straight south. to
Yep.
To that accretion. Okay,
That's what I assumed.
okay, and with that, I will
Walk through the,
walk through the findings from the planning and zoning. Give me a minute. Hardships not generally shared by properties in the same vicinity will not be detrimental to adjacent properties. Reasons are demonstrable, no convenience, profit, or caprice, not general or reoccurring in nature. Applicant has requested a variance to minimum lot size in a moderate density residential district for accretion property. The applicant has no control over the size of the property due to it being accretion. Conditions are not the result of the applicant. No special privilege has been granted. Mailings were out. There was a public hearing. Variances for accretion property that's in the floodplain. It's undevelopable. And it passed planning and zoning 7-0.
Move approval of the variance request.
Second,
Motion in a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Sherry,
yes.
Dan,
Yes,
Don,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Wanda.
yes,
and just like that, we approve
Motion
variances again
approved.
after a year, 2 years. It's great news.
Okay, item 12, Heine CUP. Well, come on forward, Ryan. Applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to hold events that may include live entertainment and the serving of food and alcohol in an ag district per Article 5, Section 509. Said property is legally described as the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter and in the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 16, Township 93, Range 56, west of the 5th Prime Meridian, Yankton County, South Dakota. E91 address is 4200 Alphonse Road, Yankton. Floor is yours.
All right. I'm gonna try to keep this short and sweet, and hopefully you can get out of here the efficiency of a cannabis license. Anyway, this CUP is so that is to define that we're going to hold events out there that may include serving of alcohol, or beverages and food, and may have live entertainment. Could be any or all or one of those things. Pretty much kind of exactly what we've done in the years past. We got rezoned to agricultural, and so this to kind of clean up and make sure everything is neat and tidy and exactly as it should be.
Great. Any questions for the applicant at this time?
No.
I've got a question for you and kind of Gary or Bill, I guess. Just curious why we went with 509 and not exhibition areas. Isn't that, didn't we talk about exhibition areas when we were zoned to ag?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the conditional uses is exhibition area.
I'm just curious if it makes more sense to.
Want me to read the definition of that?
If you've got it.
Yep. So exhibition area is a building, group of buildings or place where art, objects, articles, or livestock or ag projects are placed on display.
I know, it's kind of. No, okay.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
What are your hours that you're planning on having here? I know you live there.
We live there.
So-
Our hours are going to be the normal business
Okay.
hours. I mean, when you host, when you have an event or something, we could have a private event that could go later. The bars there, they go as late as 2 o'clock. We don't expect it to be going that late, but we don't really want to have restrictions on that are any greater than any other business in the area.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, you may sit down.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll open up to public comment. Would anybody in the audience care to make a public comment? And we'll limit to 3 minutes per comment.
Be mindful of the microphone.
Okay. I already gotta have a loud voice. So
Thank you.
my name is Amber Evans, and I just want to make it extremely clear to Ryan and to everybody else that ever since we own the property right next to his, we have always been in full support of this business. We think that it's a good addition. But I do feel like he should be treated as everybody else seeking a CUP has been treated. I feel like he should be required to be a part of the road agreement that is currently in place on Alphonse Road. When we were seeking our CUP, he asked that that be a condition for us, and all the property owners that are around Alphonse Road are currently in a road agreement, but he refused to be a part of it. And since him and his family and people who work for him use it every single day, we feel like he should be required to be a part of that as well. And then I also feel like in the last meeting, he did mention that he said 8 or 9 o'clock for the time frame in the evening, I feel like that should also be a condition in it, out of respect for all of the people who live around there. And that's pretty much it.
Do you have different hours in mind for weekends versus Tuesday through Thursday? Or Monday through Thursday?
My
I mean, earlier on during the week and later on the weekend would be okay in your mind?
Sure. I mean, I feel like not 2 o'clock, I don't feel like is good because there's a lot of immediate people there to the south, to the east, that are all around there that I don't feel like 2 o'clock is necessarily appropriate. Stringers isn't like directly right next to houses, I don't believe. Like, well, I guess there is a house. I don't know how late they run though, but that's just my thoughts.
Did you have an idea on a time that you'd like to see during the weekdays and weekends?
I guess, I don't know. I feel like 10, 11, I feel like is an appropriate time, but I don't like, maybe not later than midnight, I feel like would be appropriate. I'm not really sure how loud it gets. I guess I've never been over there exactly when he's had things, but so that's.
Okay, well, we'll have that discussion. So thank you. Would anybody else care to make comment on this application? Forward 3 minutes.
I like to ask, I'll try and wrap this up as fast as I can. I promise to get my facts done as soon as possible. I know that in other meetings, people have been allowed to talk more than 3 minutes, such as like my leg project and stuff. I really promise to make the facts go straight. If you could just let me get all this out here, if that's
We'll
okay.
try. Typically we'd spend 3 minutes though.
Okay, like on my, I'm just saying on my lake project, people were actually called up to talk again for longer, as long as it wasn't over an hour. So I'm sorry, I'll do my best. Okay, so I like to state again, I really want this squashed. I know you guys know that me and Ryan have had our issues. I'm not against this. This is good for him. This is good for me. I think just certain conditions need to be put on this. First off, it was stated at the last meeting by the deputy zoning administrator that conditions could be put on this at a later date. Is that true?
No.
Okay, so there were people who didn't show up to this meeting for that specific reason, thinking that that was true, and that was stated at the planning commission level. The next thing, at the previous meeting was this stated, I think Joe, you stated 2 conditional use permits would be needed for this. Like one for the bar and then one for events, if I remember right.
There might have been question on the zoning, I think, because he had a home
Oh, okay.
occupation
Okay,
and then the events.
so this will take care of both. Okay, the next
'Cause you
thing.
currently hold a home occupation, if I could remember, so.
Okay. The next thing, next question I had, maybe I'll take care of the important stuff that I think first. So if I go through the findings of facts from the planning, one of the things was, let's see here, like ingress egress, is a map required like for this CUP compared to other CUPs? Like when RV parks come in and stuff like that, they're required to show a map of structures, stuff like that. The reason why I ask is like, my concern is his stage is pointed directly at my property right now on the east side of his property. He did say that it was going to be on the west side, but if there's not a map, like he can put the stage anywhere and point it anywhere, is kind of what I'm looking at. Also ingress egress. I'm guessing it'll be Alphonse Road, but like when I do my CUPs, I have to have a map for ingress egress. Does he not need a map to show his plans, like for parking and stuff like that? I'm just asking if he needs a map or is it just
I
certain?
would, you've
CUPs?
got
Nothing
40
that's
seconds. I would
required.
keep
It's
going.
not
Okay, so you
required,
guys
but-
can allow other people to talk way longer than 3 minutes and you especially can call up people
I-
from the crowd?
I
With
think it
respect,
was-
sir, I've already given you extra time because you used the first minute to explain that you don't have enough time to talk.
I agree. And you let your
So-
friends on my Lake Alexis
So,
project
stop,
talk way
stop.
longer.
So the difference is typically we have a 3-minute public comment portion. During that, I know that was a little different because of the large number of people. And it was given a time frame to discuss for public comment. And there was a time allotted and it was, rotation and if there was time extra. But typically we do a 3-minute public comment.
Okay, so I don't know exactly what the SDCL is, but I am allowed to state everything. If I'm not allowed to state everything that I
You're
want
allowed
to,
3 minutes.
I
That's
know,
what-
I'm talking like the South Dakota codified law states if I don't state everything that I needed, like it's
I would
illegal to do that.
Stick to the
Yes, sir.
details of what you're after.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Okay, so with the findings of facts, so I just would like an answer. So there is no map required, is that correct? No design?
It's
Correct.
not in the
It's not
ordinance.
Required in the
Okay.
ordinance.
That was my question. Okay, so let's see here. Parking is another concern for me. Parking is a requirement with these CUPs. I do have pictures of his property. Beacon does not show any of this stuff. I do have copies for everyone. Could I give you copies?
Thank you.
So as you'll see in the pictures, I know he has farmland. I doubt he's gonna park on his crops and stuff like that. For instance, last month, we required no more than 5 cars at a CUP that we did in Gavin's Gulch and required them to have screening and everything else. This will be much larger than that. I would like to see screening and fencing with also allowed parking, like an actual parking area on this so that people don't park on Alphonse Road, just as I had the condition to not park on Alphonse Road when I got my CUP. The next thing in the findings of facts, let's see here. So the music, that's fine by me. I would like to see, like, we have a quiet time at our place of 10 o'clock. I would like it to be 10 o'clock.
Is that all week?
Yes,
Okay.
that is every night. I understand Stringers goes late. I get that. We have less than 100 feet away from his place. We do have families that are sleeping. Not to mention Matt Archer's like little trailer place and the residents to the south also have people, which they're a little bit farther away for the residents to the south. The next thing, let's see here. Like I said, screening and buffering. If he plans to have his concert thing on the other side, that's fine. But with his screening and buffering, if he does plan it to have on the east side, I would like to see something. His fence, as you see in the picture, is not completely surrounded around there. There's a barbed wire fence that he put in. I don't think that would be very safe for drunk people or people drinking to be by that barbed wire fence on that side. That's pretty much everything that I have. I'm just afraid if conditions are not put on this, if somebody else takes this over later, they can do whatever they want. They could have 10,000 people there in his whole field and have huge festivals. And if we don't put any conditions on it, then it's open to anything. I trust Ryan, he lives there. I highly doubt he's gonna do it till 2 a.m., but that's just what I'm thinking, I guess. So,
Okay.
thank you for allowing me that time.
Thanks, man. Anybody in the audience, anybody else in the audience care to make comment? Hearing and seeing none, public comment is closed. Bring it back to the board.
I think the idea of a quiet time is reasonable. And the reason I said I did watch the planning commission on this, there's a pretty large housing development just south of that, and the rest of that 40-acre property of White Crane Estates is likely gonna be developed at some point in time. I don't see there being a problem.
Right.
But, I think a reasonable 10:30 quiet time, I don't think that's gonna hurt anybody.
Can you come up real quick? Either on there or on here. So where currently is the stage? What's the proposed plan, I guess?
It's a pretty old aerial, but
You've got another building to the west, correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
here, bring this over here. So currently, the stage is sitting right here. We would, in the documents there on the application, I kind of outlined this area kind of around. We want to make this transition going to the west. Our
I'm
stage
sorry,
exists-
can you talk up?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yell at me, I'm fine. with
All
it.
right. So currently the stage does exist right here. We built in we started constructing a privacy fence going around to be wrapped up around most of the way up. We do have a barbed wire fence here that eliminated a lot of cross traffic. That was a huge liability issue that we had from Mr. Evans' property. And we did try to work with him on that fence, but he did tell us directly that he saw no benefit. So parking, ingress, egress, we have our road coming up here. Our parking has always been off here to the west of our north hop yard. This is an area of roughly 2 acres of just open, flat grass for people to park on.
How many cars would you guess? Just guess.
Well,
I mean, we're talking 100 or are we talking 50?
100,
Okay,
at least 100.
okay.
Yeah, it's just a big open grass field here that we use for parking. And like I said, we did build a privacy fence. We build a privacy fence going around. A lot of that was just really to give us that screening that we don't get from the park here. We also additionally have trees planted along here. We're looking at trying to build in more trees simply because we just don't have any screening from the RV park.
Where is Alphonse Road on here?
Oh, Alphonse Road is down here
Okay,
coming in. And this is actually we have built up a full loop around this here. So it's kind of a full kind of one-way loop to come up and around. And then we have a road going back here to the grass area.
is there some kind of a road running between the yellow and red lines that goes north?
Not on, okay. There is a road that comes here on the west side of the red line that comes up and down. It does not show up on here. This is kind of an old aerial, so. But it had, we put material on it and made it and formalized it as a road.
That's your
That's a
road.
private
our-
private road.
As
so
our
not a
private
public.
road.
So
It's
you
not a
could-
public road.
You could park on that if you had to.
We don't park
You
on that.
don't?
There's not enough room for
Okay.
parking. We put up parking signs to direct people to park back here when we were open. We put up signs to direct people all the way up. We'd actually barricade off access here and here as people are coming up. And then, as we had one large event, we'd really try to do a lot of effort to traffic flow it to make sure that everything flows right. And the reason we don't put a map in and put in a lot of things, we do have a lot of space out here. This is a very infant operation here. We want to grow it. We want to make it better. If we confine ourselves to a map, we're just gonna be back up here changing it and changing it and changing it and changing it. And we're like, oh, well, if we move the stage over here, then we're gonna possibly have to redirect traffic in a different direction. Do we have to come up and do another map then? How many times am I gonna have to come up here and present yet another just variation to what is pretty much all internal? We do not want to have a limitation on hours. We've had issues where Matt has called the cops on us for stuff in the past. And so I just don't want to have those issues. I feel like it's just fair that, if we have a space that we should be able to operate within the same laws that Stringers has bans, and, you know, when they have bands, I can hear them all the way out here. I can hear them until they're playing all the way all night. So
Will you do me a favor? On the far left, click on county zoning districts. Far left,
On the white
On the-
portion of the, yep,
There
there
you
you
go.
go. There we go.
and then go back up by stringers, if you would.
Yep,
Commercial zoned.
commercial zoned. They do have residences here. There is also a residence actually in this red zone here.
The
so.
difference though between commercial and lakeside commercials, bars are permitted uses. So when they came in, it was just a building
Dan.
permit. There was no conditional use for those because that's a permitted use
Okay,
in
that-
those zones.
but that's why we're asking up here. That's why we're going for a
Mhm.
CUP because it's a conditional use.
Mhm.
So that's why we are asking for a
Mhm.
CUP. And as such, we feel like we should have that thing. Now, traditionally, our events always ended at 9 because they're outdoors and it's just it isn't pleasant. That could, I don't want to limit myself saying that it's going to be like that for the next 50 years, you know. If we want to improve and build our tourism here, I do want to have the freedom to operate later with a building or something maybe, and that could change in the future. Pretty simply, I just want to be able to do exactly what we did and not have any outrageous conditions applied to us. So we do have fencing. I do have a road agreement. It was last modified in 1995. Mr. Evans should be very aware of this because he would have had to he would have had to read it in order to buy his property. And that road agreement does spell out exactly what each party's financial liabilities are for the road, and if there is outstanding or larger issues that a party wants to take on, they're free to do so. So, and it does grant me, it is an easement, it grants me full access to my property. It's a landlocked property. This is my only access.
Realistically speaking, do you anticipate having functions other than on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday?
That's definitely not in our plans right now.
Yeah. So you don't have a problem with their suggestion of quiet time Monday through Thursday at this point in your life?
I don't, but I don't see, that's not part of their conditions on their conditional use permit. I don't see it. I don't feel like it's right to put it as a condition. Now, that said, I'm going to say, we live there. We're not going to be partying all hours of the night.
Okay.
I'm not that young.
You live there adjacent to their property. Are their properties loud at night on the
There is
weekends?
noise at night. There is noise that goes out, and on the weekends, it can be as late as midnight. It's never been a big issue. His residence noise is, it's background noise. We kind of moved out here. We kind of really wanted to have the space out here. That's probably the only thing that's annoying, is that we have people so close again. But like I said, it's his property. He's done what he wants with it.
But typically, like an easement is going to grant you access to your property. You can't prevent it. Does the road agreement specifically say anything regarding commercial use though, or is that private use?
It is access to the property. It defines that this is for commercial traffic, farm traffic on that property. So it is an easement, and as such, it's, we cannot be denied access to our property. And that said, also, our traffic is historically has been not that great, not massive. Like I said, we've had our biggest event out there was actually a company party. So
Was what?
Our biggest event that we've ever done down there was a company party for a manufacturer in Yankton here. So.
And it was loud and raucous and went all night.
It was in the afternoon, but it had a lot of cars that came down. But like I said, we had plenty of parking for for them is, I think it's 700 people. Don't know if we'd ever do that again. It was just a lot of people.
Well, I'll bring it back to the board unless there's further questions or follow-up questions. Okay, thank you. You can sit down.
You're gonna go through the.
Microphone.
I asked for further public comment.
There was.
Okay.
Okay, I had the finding of fact pulled up. I lost them. There we go. I'm gonna go through these and then we'll continue discussion at the board. Applicants requesting conditional use permit to hold events that may include live entertainment and the serving of food and alcohol in an agricultural district per Article 5, Section 509. Mailings were out. They attended a public hearing. The planning commission recommended to grant the conditional use 5-2. Ingress and egress exists. Parking is available, will not affect neighboring properties. Refuge and service areas present, utilities present. Says there's no screening or buffering required. No signs are required. Lighting is present and satisfactory. Open space present. It is generally compatible with adjacent properties and will not adversely affect public interest. Those are the findings.
I'd move approval of the request. But I think a good, fair compromise is some quiet hours. I know they said they live there, but that can change. But I think a 10:30 quiet hour is a reasonable accommodation. This is live entertainment. It could be amplified music. There are a lot of people who live in the area, so move approval of the request with the condition that quiet hours at 10:30 p.m.
So motion, is there a second? I'll second it for just for further discussion.
I
So
live very close to Mr. Heine's hop farm. I also live close to the Cottonwood, a little bit farther to Cozy's in the marina. And I can hear music from probably not Cozy's, but
Stringers.
I think they can have it. But certainly from Cottonwood and the marina if they have it. I'm not certain how we can put time restrictions on one individual and allow the rest of them to operate.
Well, the reason being, Don, is those businesses were either grandfathered in before zoning or they're in a zone that didn't require a conditional use permit. For example, Stringers is in commercial district. It's a permitted use for a bar. And the applicant chose to do ag, knowing that what he was going to do is a conditional use. A nut Lakeside commercial PUD, it could have been a permitted use. And so those, like you said, the Cottonwood and these other bars are in a zone that is not required because it's a permitted use. And that's why I think it's different. I think 10:30 is a reasonable time. There, like I said, if you look right there south, that's White Crane Estates. There are a lot of people, hundreds of them who live close to that.
No.
So that
No, there's not
Lakeside,
hundreds of
Well,
people.
okay, look, if you scroll out.
I look at it
there-
every day from my house.
Well,
I know where it is.
Okay,
So
Sherry
the-
has Sherry
and
has the
there's a
floor.
potential for a lot of growth in that.
Sherry
area.
has
so the
floor.
Lakeside commercial area, you can build a bar today, anywhere in that dark pink. No restrictions, correct? So I can
permitted use.
hop the barbed wire fence and go to a bar that can be open till 2 and play music as loud as it wants, and then I can hop back to kind of a same function, but not really. That's restricted to 10:30. I think we also have to look at the proximity to other businesses, and I think that's what Don's point is, that campground. I've been to campgrounds before. and with my family, and we're up till 2 o'clock and we're playing music and all kinds of stuff, not overly loud, but you can hear it everywhere in the campground. So it's, I think it's challenging for 10:30. It really is. Something like midnight, maybe I could tolerate. But I can't agree with 10:30.
So I was gonna say, just to kind of keep discussions to Don's point, when the city had their, what was their party in the park in Memorial Park, they had bands. I could hear them out at my farm.
You mean when they
15.
did Rib Fest?
Yeah, they moved Rib Fest to Memorial Park.
Yeah.
I could hear the music 16 miles away.
But you have better hearing.
But I will say with, and I don't have any concern with that. I know some people in the city probably did, but they also have, closed the concert at a reasonable time for a neighborhood. And I don't want to limit Mr. Heine from smaller events. Some of them are probably going to be inside, whatever. And I don't know if I agree with 10:30, and I don't agree with just saying quiet hours. I would potentially look at a set time where there's no amplified music or something outside
Did
after a certain
Exactly.
time or something.
Does the campground have CUP quiet hours where they're shut down, or is it just
I don't believe that there was any conditions placed on. but
regulations by the owners?
I believe there was a list of rules that was submitted with the application, and in that was quiet hours at a certain time. So it was,
I guess I'm just looking at a way to avoid a problem in the future.
Right.
And maybe no amplified music after 11:30, if that is acceptable for people. But we have to realize if for some reason, this place gets sold or the CUB gets handed over, there's no restrictions. And we know that would cause problems. So I guess I withdraw
You
my
wanna just
motion
okay.
and make another motion as approve the CUP condition of no amplified music after 11:30 PM. And I think that's reasonable. And we got to think about the whole area down there. It's a great business. I hope it does well, and it's busy every weekend, but we also got to take care of the citizens who live in that area too. And I think this is a good compromise.
so there's a motion to approve based on findings of fact with the condition that there's no amplified music after 11:30 PM. Is there a second?
$11:30.
11:30 PM. Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second.
I'd move to approve the CUP as presented.
Motion to approve the CUP based on findings of fact.
Could you do a 12 o'clock? And I'll second it if it's 12 o'clock. That's a reasonable thing for that area.
How can we have a ton of conditions for us to follow, but he doesn't have to
Ma'am,
follow
ma'am.
state rules?
Ma'am,
Come up to the microphone, please.
no.
All I'm looking at doing is having that, because the lake area is going to keep growing, White Crane's going to keep growing. Let's avoid a problem a year, 2 years down the road. 12 o'clock is a reasonable time. And we'll move on.
No. There's a motion to approve based on finding of fact. Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second.
I'd move, that we approve the CUP with the condition that there's no amplified music after 12 o'clock.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. motion to approve based on findings of fact with the condition that there's no amplified music past midnight, 12 o'clock. With a second, further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Sharon,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes,
Wanda.
Yes.
motion passes. Okay, item 13, Rolf's CUP. Please state your name and what you'd like to do.
I'm Lori Rolfus, and we bought property of 506 Hidden Hollows Drive. 605, 506. Anyways, we would like to apply to use the property as a vacation property. We live in Vermillion right now, but we would like to retire at this property eventually in the next 5 to 10 years. And so we would like to use it as a vacation property right now, renting it during the summer months. So we have sent out all the letters. We have spoken to all the neighbors who have a property within the 1,000 feet of our property. We plan on having lots of rules to not, affect our neighbors in any way. And so that's what we'd like to do.
Gary, would you mind pulling that up on Beacon? Thank you. I'm going to back up 1 second. And applicants requesting a conditional use permit to use her house as a vacation rental in a moderate density residential district per Article 7, Section 709, said properties legally described as Lot 1, Dan Kaiser Edition in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 14, Township 93, Range 57, together with a perpetual easement for ingress and egress across over and through Lot 4 of Advertisement Tract 8 as plotted in books S18, page 351, and a perpetual 40-foot ingress, egress, and utility easement over, across, and through the northwest quarter, southeast quarter, Section 14, Township 93, Range 57, for the benefit of Lot 1, Dan Kaiser Edition, County of Yankton, South Dakota, as per plat, recorded in book S18, page 354. E911 address is 506 Hidden Hollows Drive, Yankton. Any questions for the applicant?
No questions.
Do you plan, are you gonna manage it, or is it like an Airbnb or?
Kind of like an Airbnb, yep,
Okay.
but we'll manage it ourselves.
You're gonna manage, okay. How is the house set up as far as number of
Bedrooms
guests and
stuff.
bedrooms and bedding? And
Right now there's 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms. It does have a partial basement. We are targeting families, so we're targeting like 3 families. There'll be a game room in the basement for younger kids.
Okay.
So maybe 10 to 12 people.
Okay.
No parties. It's gonna be on there specifically, no bachelor parties, no anything like that.
Good luck.
Too old, so I guess I'm out. Okay, any further questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay, you may sit down.
Thank you.
This time I will take public comment. If anyone in the audience would like to make comment on the application, now is your time. Hearing and seeing none, public comment is closed. Bring it back to the board for decision. I'll go through findings of fact quickly. Requirements of 1723 were met, 1729 were met. Applicant is requesting conditional use to use her house as a vacation rental in a moderate density residential district per Article 7, 709. Mailings were out. Looks like somebody attended for the applicant. It was granted 7-0 at planning and zoning. Ingress egress exists. Parking is present. Property is isolated, so there's minimal, no effect on neighboring properties. Refuse service is present. Utilities present. No screening and buffering additional required. No signs required. No required yards or open spaces. It is in general compatibility with adjacent properties and will not adversely affect the public interest. I'd entertain a motion.
I'd move approval of the raw CUP.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Wanda.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. And I forgot to make this note at the beginning of the approval of the agenda, but item 14 is canceled. Correct, Gary? And so at the last time we had a continuance to this date. At this point, we're just going to cancel and they will.
Correct, yeah, they have withdrawn this variance and plat as of now.
So with that, I'd entertain a motion to go back to regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now back in the regular session. Item 15, Posh plat.
Yes, we have the two plats that we talked about during the variance. First one is plat of Lot B1 being accretion property lying south of Lot B in section 16, Township 93 North, range 55 west to the 5th principal meridian, Yankton County, South Dakota.
Move approval of the.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Second one's plat of tracks 1A, 2A, 3A, 6A, and 8A of DJ's addition being accretion property lying south of lots A and B, and tracks 7 and 8 of DJ's addition in Lot B in section 16, Township 93 North, range 55 west to the 5th principal meridian, Yankton County, South Dakota.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Los, second by Clemish to
I think
approve
Wanda
the
got
Jensen.
that one.
Maybe my left ear is better than my right. I don't know. Wanda, motion by
Doesn't
Los, second
matter.
by Wanda to approve the Jensen plat. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, item 16.
Who's up?
Drainage Commission.
Who is up?
So we have two drainage commissioners that are up for new terms or two new openings. David Healy and Kevin Kirschman are the ones that are up this year. And so we're going to advertise for 2 openings for the 9-member Drainage Commission Board.
When's the last time the Drainage Commission has met?
January, because we had to. You have to, you have to
State
meet every
law,
6
yes,
months.
indeed.
When's the last time? was
So the
that?
next one's planned for probably next month again for the 6 months.
Move approval of the request for advertisement for Drainage Commission openings.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, could we take a 5-minute break?
If you would like to make a motion, we can.
Make a motion for a 5-minute break.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Move to go back into regular session.
Second.
Motion by Lowe, second by Kettering, go back into regular session. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Meeting has been now back in session. Okay, item 17, letter of support for Lewis and Clark Behavioral Health's regional facility.
Dr. Stanage had reached out to me. They're continuing down their process to construct a treatment center out there. And so he had sent me a letter of which I modified to fit the commission, and that was in your packet. So he's looking for us to approve it. And then I'll send it back to him, or the auditor's office will.
Second.
Motion in a second to approve the letter of support for Lewis and Clark Behavioral Health Regional Facility. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 18, approve April 19th, 2022 joint planning and county commission meeting minutes.
So there's one thing at the bottom of the minutes, the date that carries forward didn't get changed. Let's see if I can, no, wrong one, just a second. This is 18.
Says 3/01/22.
Yeah, it should be April 19th, and that one didn't get changed there. And let's see, that's for the joint one. And then the other one as well, the April 19th there, that one says 3/15, so it should be 4/19. So just clerical at the bottom of those need to be changed.
Okay. I would
Is that a motion?
entertain a motion.
So I would move to approve the joint planning and county commission meeting minutes with the correction stated.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I would move to approve the April 19th regular commission meetings with the correction stated.
Motion and a second to approve the April 19th, 2022 regular commission meeting minutes with the date corrections. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 19, claims.
There's one claim that needs to be noted that it's going to a different account. Hang on a second. I'm behind. I'm slow. Yep. So there's a state's attorney claim. It's for like $1,800. Let me see. I've got it written down here. Oh, it's 9. It's 9157.83, and it should actually be assigned to care of poor relief, professional services. So it just was misassigned in the listing.
What was the amount?
$9,157.83. Well, there was a 1 and an 8 in there. I
From
was
the state's
close.
attorney to poor relief.
Poor relief, yes.
Care to make that a motion?
I would move to approve the claims with the corrections stated.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve claims with the change of $9,157.82 from the state's attorney's line item to the poor relief. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. April payroll.
Move approval.
Second.
Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanticipated revenue.
Is this for the road grader, I assume?
This is for the 2003 Caterpillar.
Road grader?
I would move approval
Yep.
of the unanticipated revenue.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I just want to note, this was originally we talked trade-in with price of steel and everything. This was sold on Purple Wave auction. And so I want to say it was 54,000 was our
Yeah, we did very
trade-in
good
value,
on
I
it.
think.
We did very good on
And
it.
so,
And we got 69.
yeah,
And that's probably minus
The
auction
commission.
fees. So
Yeah,
I don't know what
that's
it actually
cleared.
brought.
that's cleared to us. So
Yeah,
good deal.
maybe we need to look into that. I know last time we had an ambulance, we traded in, we got little or nothing. I think we got 14 or 1,500. Maybe we should look at the chassis at least, trying to auction that stuff off.
Sometimes that's tied into the trade
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
or the deal, but
exactly.
anyway.
Something to look into.
Yep.
So,
So with that, I will take public comment. Would anybody in the audience care to make public comment? Come on forward, Bob.
I don't think your mic's on. There you go.
First of all, you were mentioning Mr. Heine doing his business from Monday through Thursday with a quiet time. Are you forgetting that Monday's usually major holidays that he might want to consider in his business? If you're gonna have that as part of his CUP. The main thing I want to talk about is the sewer system coming out of Napa Junction up here. Let's face reality. That sewer system is gonna be just for Napa Valley. And I did a little trip out there this last week. We've got a county road, 307, just a little bit south of Napa Valley. Goes Napa Junction, I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. It goes to the west between Deer Boulevard and Timberland Park Road. I think it's approximately 2 miles. I might be off. I'm using the odometer in my car. You go south of there where 207 or 307 comes into Timberland Park Road. 2 miles south from that junction there is County Road 309. Now that gives us access to putting the sewer system in the ditch without having to turn around, and take anybody's property away from them. And they could take a 309 to Highway 81, and they could hook right on to the north side of the state hospital sewer system on there. You would cut out miles of work trying to run this deal down to 314 and over. They would get a quicker system in because we're going to be discussing this for 20 years, at least the way it's been discussed right now. I would suggest when they ask about it, give them that deal, have them turn around and negotiate with the city of Yankton, because obviously they're going to be the main user of this line. Let them work out their own project. If we've got to do anything else, and I'm not going to make any suggestions on what that would be to aid them in doing so, we can turn around and say, yes, you can have your sewer system, but we'd like you to take a different route. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anybody else care to make public comment? Yep, come on forward, Matt.
Congratulations, Ryan. I just want you to know that I'm somewhat happy on what happened tonight here. I'd like your business to succeed. Hopefully we can move forward from what's happened and be good for each other as far as the business. I am a little upset with the commission here. I would like to thank Don and I would like to thank Dan. I really feel that you guys sucked it up at the end and felt that things should be fair. And I appreciate that condition for midnight to happen. 700 people, guys, 700 people, amplified music, no screening, no parking lot, one condition. This commission is supposed to be fair and not biased. This is not happening. Let me remind you of the conditions that you have put on me in the last 3 years. A fence surrounding 20 acres, a privacy fence on top of that. I am the only RV park required to have a fence. The requirement of a road agreement that was recommended by Ryan. There again, Ryan, I don't have a problem with you. It's just decisions being made. The road agreement was required on me, but not him. No parking on my road that I spend all this money on, and myself and Matt Archer do, and no one else. And I'm not even allowed to park on a road that's mine. Inspection of the roads before I even open at my RV park. Other RV parks that are not doing what they're supposed to in the subdivision ordinance are allowed to open as you pass them with no restrictions whatsoever, and plastic culverts are being put in. Not to mention on top of it, DENR requirements for me to have my stuff done, while other RV parks currently are ripping out their systems because they were put in wrong and they didn't have any requirements to get put on them. Let's see here. No pumping water out of my own lake. Adding rock to a county road. Otherwise, I would face denial. I was even told that I had to allow people to trespass on my lake and my property, or I would be denied building out at my lake. Kind of crazy, don't you think? On top of all of this, this commission does not make fair decisions. There's no way that you guys can look at everything that's happened to me and say that this is not biased and completely fair. There is no way that you can say that. I'm almost rounding up my 10 minutes here. These decisions is the entire reason, okay, for me and this community, why I am running for county commission. This needs to be fair, people. It's got to be fair. You guys sit here and let other people talk. That's not right. Matt Rumsey comes up here. Yeah, my son couldn't make it today, so I'd like to take his 3 minutes. Sherry Los, yeah, sure, go ahead. You can do that. Matt,
All right.
3 minutes. That's it.
And that's your 3 minutes.
And that is my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Would anybody else care to make public comment? Come on up.
It's been a long evening. It doesn't seem to be run quite as well as some people would like, but I think all in all, the commissioners have done a very good job looking out for the citizens of this county and taking care and making things fair and honest for everybody. And I want somebody to say something good, because it's about time that you get some credit for doing your jobs and discussing it and getting it done. And not cowing to things that are not being done, aren't followed out on sometimes. And you're doing a good job. So I would like to say thank you to the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Anybody else care to make public comment? Hearing and seeing none, public comment is closed. Item 21, commissioner updates. None.
No, I wrote something down. Oh, this month we will be conducting a public meeting for the FEMA application to raise the road going over Stone Church Bridge, the 431st. It's not officially set yet. It hasn't been published, but this month we will get that meeting done to get input. It will be held up, I think, in Lesterville, if we can get a location, because that affects those folks up there.
I think a better location, we should have it at the church. If you want me to make some calls. I can.
Where?
At the church.
Mike's already working on it, and it's
right
not,
there, though.
yes,
Would make
but there
sense.
are people from the south side of the county that go over that, and he was looking for a large area, so.
Named Stone Church Bridge. It's literally like you can see it from there. But if you'd like me to make a call, I can.
Okay, I'll let Mike know that, but he's
Okay.
planning for the Lesterville Fire Hall. I believe, on that. So at the end of this month, we should hopefully get some information from the state on the local infrastructure program when that has to deal with township roads. So that will be something over the summer that we will be meeting with townships on as well. That's all I got.
I don't think I have any right now. Does that conclude?
I move we go into executive session for litigation pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2 sub 3 and poor relief issues pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2 and 28-13 and 28-13 1.3.
Second.
Motion is second, go into executive session. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And Dan, any opposed? Motion passes. We are now in executive session.
I would have died. Those first 25 years were not easy.
And people really just, they don't know. I mean, they moved or.
I'd move we
never
go
registered.
back into session.
Motion to go back into regular session and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? We're now back in regular session.
I would move to approve burial 22-2-001 for $1,250.
Second.
Motion in a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Move to approve mental illness file number 22-1-002 and 22-2-001 for $1,000.
Second.
Do I do them
Pen.
separate? Oh, pending. Sorry. Thank you, Deb. Pending.
Withdraw that.
Withdraw your motion.
I'll withdraw.
Thank you.
Move to pend. Mental illness number 22-1-002, 22-2-001 for $1,000.
Second.
Motion to pend mental illness cases as stated in the second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. No action will be taken as a result of litigation. Items for next meeting. I like that.
Do we have, Sherry, you talked tonight to me about it, or I talked to you about it, and I'm not sure where we ended up, but do we have a time frame on responding to the West 11th Street people?
Next meeting, the resolution is being written,
Okay,
and the next meeting it will be on the agenda.
thank you.
In regards to that, I've had some people reach out to me from Kaiser Road, and I think it's real important that we, and I'm sure we're gonna have this as just the process that, you know, we're gonna do if we're gonna upgrade these roads. If it's, everybody has to agree 90%, or just the people who live on that road will pay it in full. Let's have a process in place, you know, before we do one. And so that if other people want to do the same thing, they know what they need to do. So-
Yep, that's the intent with the resolution, is to walk
Great.
through there. And so
Great.
what we'll do is it'll be presented, we'll discuss it. We won't decide on it because I think it's got to be passed before July 15th. So gives us
Okay.
June to
Awesome.
pen it in.
Okay, so that'll be on the agenda.
Yeah.
I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd
So
make a
Second.
Everybody wants in on that one. Wow.
I think
Just pick somebody.
Wanda and Don.
Aye.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.